Ravens Wrap is sponsored by Bud Light, jctickets.net, Geico Insurance, Donaway Furniture, Ocean City Golf Club, RussellStreetReport.com, Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Holiday Inn Express, the original Green Turtle, hosted by the Blue Ox Bar and Grill.
There we go. Welcome in. It is the original Green Turtles Ravens Wrap Show right here on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio, the strongest Ravens affiliate on the eastern shore of Maryland and Delaware, 93.5 The Beach. We are broadcasting from the Ravens Room of the Blue Ox Bar and Grill, 127th Street and Coastal Highway at Ocean City, with Ravens fans all across Delmarva, at least parts of Ravens Roost 44. Give yourselves a hand, guys and gals. I like to hear. Welcome into week number 5 of the NFL for your 2-2 Baltimore Ravens. Coming up, we'll recap the 23-20 loss to the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk news and notes, take a trip around the AFC North, and preview the upcoming game against the Miami Dolphins. Kickoff at 1 o'clock down at, it's not Joe Robbie anymore. I don't know what they're calling it this year. There's always a corporate sponsor for their stadium. But down in Miami, on the radio, of course, that's preceded by the network pregame show at 12:30, and this show airing at 11 a.m. right here on 93.5 The Beach. Hey, the Ravens Wrap Show is brought to you by, of course, the original Green Turtle, the fine folks at the Blue Ox Bar and Grill, our friends at Bud Light, the Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Geico, the Ocean City Golf Club, jctickets.net, the Holiday Inn Express North Side here at Ocean City, right to our right, and our friends at Donaway Furniture. And again, folks, don't forget their in-stock outdoor furniture 50% off sale is going on right now, and they also carry chase lounges, dining sets, umbrellas, glider love seats, and same-day delivery if you buy it off the deck. Also free delivery. 410-250-5100, located there at 130th Street, Coastal Highway, Bayside, again in Ocean City. I'm Mike Bradley from 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore, and locally here at 92.7 WGMD. To my left, longtime football and lacrosse coach, also Ravens Roost 44 member, Steve Slaza. Welcome back, Steve. To his left, the host of the Endless Golf Show and the Resort Golf Guide, and of course the former host of the Stallion Sports Show, Bobby Vermillion. Bobby, welcome back, sir.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
All right. And special guest Tom Moore. He's a local Ocean City lawyer, also a really good writer, that is, for RussellStreetReport.com. He's one of Tony Lombardi's writers. Big hand for Tom.
Welcome, Tommy. Welcome.
Well, guys, a lot to certainly get to. Let's first set the scene as we headed into week number 4 of the NFL. At the time for the Ravens, who came in at 2-1. The Buffalo Bills came in at 1-2. The Ravens were without wide receiver Brandon Stokely, linebacker Arthur Brown, defensive tackle Terrence Cody, safety Jeremy Miles, who was acquired off of waivers from the Cincinnati Bengals. He was supposed to help on special teams. Now, for the Bills of note, they were without starting quarterback Stephen Gilmore, Leotis McKelvin, backup Ron Brooks, and safety Jarius Byrd. So when you take a look at this game, Steve, we'll start off with you. One of the headlines, and I know we're going to get to the run game in a second, but one of the headlines, too, has to be when you've got a starting secondary of the Bills that's completely out, other than their strong safety in our former buddy Jimmy Leonard. How does our receiving crew not have success against a secondary that's missing 3 of their 4 pieces?
Well, I think we were as equally injured as they were. You know, when you look at it, Brandon Stokely's not playing. Deontay Thompson's back for his first game. You know, there were a lot of guys out there for us who just didn't have the familiarity with Flacco and catching the ball under traffic. So I think we were 1 for 1 as far as injuries.
Bobby, your thoughts on that?
For me, it was all about pressure on Joe Flacco. I mean, you know, you heard John Harbaugh's news conference on Monday, or press conference on Monday. They really got after Joe Flacco. They decided they were going to blitz him. Obviously, their back end was exposed because of the injuries. And our offensive line, he alluded to it on Monday, they just played horrible. This was really the first game that they did not protect Joe very well at all. And then on the other side of that is you couldn't run the football. So they're getting after the quarterback, putting pressure on him. You know, Joe didn't have time to get to his receivers and go through his progression. So I think for me it was the pressure on the quarterback.
12 quarterback hits, 4 sacks given up by the offensive line. And John Harbaugh said not as much with the tackle play, but actually the interior, the left guard, the center, and the right guard in that. We'll talk about Bryant McKinney coming up. Some big news that broke the other day concerning the Ravens. But Bryant McKinney, I think, gave up 4 quarterback pressures, but just 1 sack and 50 pass attempts. All in all, did actually a pretty good job against Mario Williams. The interior had struggles. Tom, we'll go to you, not only the passing game, but also the run as well. okay, here's a team that I grant you, not running the ball effectively at all, but at least if you run the football, even if you're only gaining a yard or two at the most, you keep the defense honest that they have to respect that. And at 20-7 or 21-7 coming out in the second half, there was no need to panic, at least early on in the third quarter.
The problem, Michael, is this is the same thing that they've done before. If you remember a couple years ago, they played Seattle, and Pete Carroll actually said in his post-game comments that he thought the Ravens helped them win because they went away from the run too early. John Harbaugh took responsibility for this today. He said when he was asked by the press, you know, was that Jim Caldwell's call? Whose call was it? John said, no, I thought it was the right decision. I stood by it. I thought we needed to pass the ball more. But the fact is, just as you say, Michael, if you cannot run the ball effectively, it makes your offense one-sided. It makes it very predictable, and I think the Bills took advantage of that.
No question about it. And Steve, we talked about this off air. What has happened to this offensive line? We can document the changes. There's a change at center. Matt Burke retired. Gino Gradkowski took over. Juan Castillo was hired as a run game coordinator, but he's really taken over as the offensive line coach. Andy Moeller's really taken a back seat to him. Other than those two changes, and the scheme has not changed, what has happened to this offensive line in less than 4 weeks?
I mean, I said, has there ever been a line in the NFL that is self-destructed faster? I mean, last year we won the Super Bowl, and this year, you know, in three games, we're absolutely terrified of defensive linemen. I mean, really, the only change is at center, and he's a Delaware boy, Donnie, so you know he's going to come on. So, you know, he's going to be good. But McKinney, I think his work ethic was just infectious where, you know, he basically went over to Assembly. Assembly is nowhere near what he was last year. So
That's a great point. That's a great point.
Basically, Matt Burke, now you realize, was covering up for KO and helping him a lot. So you have the whole left side of your line that is just playing dodge out there.
Steve, I think you hit the nail on the head. You know, look at the center position. How important was Matt Burke? I mean, I think Ravens fans are finding that out. We lost Bolden, you know, and everybody talked about that. We lost Pitta. You know, they're the flash guys. You know, everybody wants to look at them. But when you look at a guy like Matt Burke, the coverages, you know, or the protections, I should say, in the pass, and even the run blocking schemes. I think if you look, I went back actually right before we came on air, and I was watching NFL Game Rewind on my computer, where you can, you know, go back 10 seconds. And I tell you what, Gino Gradkowski had an awful game physically. I thought he was manhandled up front. That's why they got so much pressure up the middle. You know, obviously I can't tell about the schemes and the protection calls that he made, but for me, it all starts with the center position. I know we just got a tackle this week. I'm sure Mike will talk about that in Eugene Monroe. And because of McKinney, they're talking about McKinney not pass blocking or not run blocking very well. But for me, for this game, all the pressure to me seemed like it came up the middle. There were some guys from the outside that came unblocked.
But not predominantly.
But I agree with you. I think a lot of the pressure came from the gut.
I want to jump in on that, too. I think that Gino Gradkowski is really the least complicit, you might say, of the offensive line. I mean, he's a rookie. He's a guy who doesn't know better because he's new. I agree about the comment about KO. I mean, really, this line was run by Matt Burke. He made the calls. He made the good decisions. And then everyone else sort of bonded around that. But the problem is you have a rookie there who's going to make mistakes, and you need your veterans to step up. And really, you haven't seen that from McKinney and some of the other guys.
It's a good point. John Harbaugh alluded to the fact at the press conference that he didn't get specific, but in terms of making line calls, whether it's communication issue or sometimes making the right line call, Gradkowski has not done that. We know he wasn't an imposing physical type center. He's, I think, just maybe a bit over 300 at best. He's an athletic type guy for what they want to do in the zone blocking scheme. But you're right, that has its pitfalls as well. You can be athletic, but if you're not strong enough, you can get pushed back. I would agree, though, Gradkowski is one of the pieces, but I wouldn't put it all on him. I would agree, both of our guards, and that includes Marshall Yanda, who's an all-pro guy. Steve, Marshall Yanda has not played very well, but Osemele, you point him out, he's played very poorly, and we start out the game right away with a penalty on first down that sets us back right at the beginning of the game.
Well, he has taken a step backwards, and I know I'm going to hear from my daughter because Michael Orr is her favorite player, but he's taken a step backwards too. You know, when you look at that, that all comes through the center, and Gradkowski's going to be a good player. But unfortunately, this is a league where you've got to be a good player now. I mean, we're not, you know, last year you learned from the master. Now this year you've got to come out, which he will. You know, I think they're going to see improved line performance after the bye week. because you don't realize until you get in it. I mean, the bye week is really the only time where you can take 2 weeks and we can hit. We can go out, okay, we can correct all our mistakes and we can get some of our injured players back and we can get better. This team will be getting better, but unfortunately right now the offensive line is just not very
I think it had to be the pregame meal because the defensive line got pushed around too. You know, that was really the first time I can remember in a long time watching the Ravens play football where I was looking at the line of scrimmage and our offensive line was getting pushed back and our defensive line was getting pushed back. So, you know, we can talk about the offensive line a lot, and obviously that was the biggest culprit for the game, you know, and all the pressure on Flacco not being able to run the ball. But Buffalo certainly had their way with our defensive line, and they controlled the point of attack on both sides of the ball.
People say Joe Flacco becomes a deer in the headlights when certain things don't go well. And here's the point about Joe Flacco. When Joe has time, he's a very effective quarterback. He gets things done. He makes big plays. He has time to drop back and do his traditional deep drop. That's what Joe Flacco does really, really well. But the problem is when you don't give him time and he's forced to rush and make quick decisions, he's not so good at that. And then when his receivers are dropping the ball all over the field, it just doesn't usually end up in a win.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. And we will get into the defense a little bit more in the next segment. But, Bobby, I'll say this about the defense. Despite the yards given up on the ground, they were very key in some third and short situations that gave the ball back to the offense, despite how it looked on the ground.
Yeah.
Our defense, I thought all in all, not their best effort, not their A effort, but let me tell you, they kept this team in the game. It could have been maybe a lot worse if they really had an off game. About 60 seconds. Go ahead.
I agree 100% on that. It was surprised they did get pushed around, but they got off the field. Similar to the Houston game where they only gave up those 6 points to 2 field goals early. The defense kept them in the game with the turnover, the first turnover. Instead of getting 7, they only get 6. So I thought that was a big factor. But to see them being beat physically, particularly with the new pieces we have on the defensive line, was a little bit surprising.
Yeah, John Harbaugh said the lead draw play specifically was one that really ate them up for some big yards. I think there was no rush over 14 yards. The longest was 14, but there were several double-digit rushes that they had. That said, though, at the end of the day, a 3.7 average, 55 rushes for the Bills. You talk about a big difference. The Ravens rushed 9 times. That's the least any time in Ravens franchise history. They run the ball 55 times. It was absolutely amazing with that. But we'll have a lot more to get into. We'll go over the offense and, of course, talk about the defense and special teams. Lots more to come here. It's the Ravens Wrap Show on Comcast Beach TV at Delmarva's Rock Radio 93.5 The Beach. We're back next. Keep it here.
In April 1959, Art Wall won the Masters, edging out Carey Middlecoff and Arnold Palmer by finishing birdie, 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 par birdie. 1 month later, Ocean City Golf Club celebrated the opening of their first 18 holes. That course has been transformed now into one of the most scenic golf layouts on the East Coast. Come experience 36 of the most beautiful and challenging holes you'll find anywhere. Ocean City Golf Club in Ocean City, Maryland.
Come see us at Blue Off.
Welcome to the Comfort Inn Gold Coast. Conveniently located just 1 block from the beach and adjacent to shopping at the Gold Coast Mall and the movie theater. Newly renovated and open year-round with a marvelous bayfront view. Visit us on the web at comfortgoldcoast.com and see our hot deals and great golf packages, or simply call our direct reservation line to plan your stay.